I was 9 the first time I wondered if Mr. and Mrs. Hudson were really my parents. But it wasn't until I turned 18 that the question burned through me like fire. Growing up in that house felt like living in a museum where everything was polished except the people. My parents loved appearances, reputation, other people's admiration, but never me. They moved through life like the universe owed them something, and everyone else existed to serve their comfort. Sometimes I would watch them from across the dining table and think, how did I end up here? Because nothing about them felt like home. Lucinda, my sister, used to whisper to me at night, "Don't let them break you." And then one morning, she was gone. She left at 17 and never came back. They barely blinked. By the time I turned 18, the house felt colder than January rain. My parents barely spoke to me unless it was to criticize something. My posture, my grades, my hair, my breath, the way I existed. And the more they pushed me away, the more the same thought clawed its way into my mind. What if I don't belong to them? What if that's why they hate me? The night everything changed, I went to see my grandmother. My hands were shaking when I asked her the question that had lived in my throat for years. "Grandma, are they really my parents?" Her reaction. That look in her eyes. It was the first sign that my life was not what I thought it was. And it was the moment the seed of revenge was planted, quietly, deeply, without me even realizing it. Grandma froze when I asked her if Mr. and Mrs. Hudson were really my parents. Her knitting needles slipped from her hands and clattered onto the floor. I'd never seen fear cross her face before, not even at Grandpa's funeral. But that night, her whole body trembled like I had opened a locked door no one was meant to touch. "Judith," she whispered, "why would you ask such a thing?" "Because nothing about them feels right. They don't treat me like their daughter." The words came out in a rush, tight and shaky. Grandma closed her eyes as if she was praying, or trying to erase the moment. She reached for my hands, her fingers cold. "Some truths," she said quietly, "are heavier than they look. You must be careful what you search for." That answer terrified me more than the question itself. Before I could push further, the front door swung open. My mother entered, her perfume announcing her first, her disapproval following closely behind. Her eyes darted to our joined hands. "What are you two whispering about?" she asked sharply. "Nothing," Grandma replied too quickly. But my mother's cold stare lingered on me, sharp enough to cut. She knew something. Grandma knew something. And I suddenly felt like a stranger in my own bloodline. That night, as I walked home, the moon felt too bright, exposing everything I wasn't ready to face. And by the next morning, the house I returned to felt even less like mine. Something was shifting, quietly, dangerously, and I had no idea how close I was to being pushed out for good. I didn't sleep that night. Grandma's reaction replayed in my mind until morning bled into the walls. When I walked into the kitchen, my mother was already there, sipping coffee like a queen surveying her kingdom. "Grandma shouldn't fill your head with nonsense," she said without looking at me. I froze. How did she even? She placed her cup down and turned those cold eyes on me. "You're 18 now. Focus on your future, not silly questions." It wasn't advice. It was a warning. Then, like a ghost from the past, Lucinda's voice echoed in my head. "The truth in this house is poison. Don't drink it." I suddenly missed her so much it hurt. She had run away at 17, leaving behind only a short note. I refused to suffocate here. At the time, I didn't understand. Now I did. My father joined us at the table, newspaper in hand. Without lifting his eyes, he said, "Judith, make sure you don't become a liability to this family. We have enough burdens." A liability. His daughter. I tried to swallow the sting, but it lodged in my throat. Maybe that's why, after breakfast, I went back to Grandma's house. I needed clarity. But she didn't open the door. Her neighbor stepped out and said, "She traveled early this morning. Urgent family matter." Family matter. No one told me. No one included me. As I stood on that porch, I realized something. I was living in a home where every truth was hidden behind walls, and I wasn't meant to find the doors. But one door was about to be opened for me, brutally and without warning. The confrontation came 3 days later. I was sitting at the dining table, filling out scholarship forms when my father called me into the living room. My mother stood beside him, arms crossed, jaw tight. "We need to talk," he said. Those 4 words never meant anything good in the Hudson house. He didn't sit, he didn't soften. He delivered the blow standing tall like a judge. "You're 18 now. It's time you took responsibility for your own life." He gestured toward my room. "Pack your things." My mouth dried instantly. "You're kicking me out." My mother sighed dramatically, like my existence exhausted her. "Judith, you're old enough. We can't keep feeding you when you're not contributing anything." "I'm in school," I reminded them. "Exactly," she snapped. "You're not bringing income." They said it with no shame, no hesitation, no love. My father folded his arms. "Your sister managed to leave at 17. You can do the same." Lucinda leaving was their example, their justification. A part of me wanted to scream, to demand explanations, to ask about Grandma, about the truth in their eyes. But pride, shock, and deep betrayal sealed my throat. "When do I leave?" I whispered. "Now," my father said. "We have plans this evening and we don't want disruptions." Disruptions. That was the word they used for me. I packed my life into 2 bags, walked out of that house without a single goodbye, and waited for anyone, to stop me. No one did. As I stepped out of the gate, one thought echoed loudly in my head. This family wasn't mine. And one day, they were going to regret pushing me away. Florence didn't ask questions when I showed up at her door with 2 bags and swollen eyes. She just pulled me into a hug that felt more like home than anything I'd ever received from the Hudsons. "You can stay with me," she said instantly. "No rent until you're stable." Her kindness cracked something in me. I broke down crying right there on her living room rug. For the next few weeks, I slept on a slim mattress beside her wardrobe. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. I woke up breathing easier, like I had escaped from something poisonous. But freedom came with fear. Bills, food, school fees. Everything my parents had used as leverage against me was now my responsibility. One evening, Florence dragged me to a small meetup at a cafe. "You need to meet people," she insisted. "Grow your mind, expand." That night changed everything. I was introduced to a group of college students making money online, real money. Some did content creation. Some ran social media pages. But one girl said 2 words that would rewrite my future. Digital marketing. She showed me her earnings. My heart nearly stopped. People like us, broke, dismissed, underestimated, were building lives from a laptop. Florence nudged me. "You can do this, you're smart." For the first time in my life, I believed it. That night, I stayed awake until 3 a.m., watching tutorials, taking notes, dreaming of a future where my parents' rejection would become meaningless. But dreams were fragile, and reality was waiting to test me in ways I couldn't imagine. The first test came sooner than I expected. Learning digital marketing felt like learning a new language, but one that finally made sense. I practiced every day after classes, offering free services just to gain experience. My parents had always made me feel incompetent, useless. But for once, I was building something that didn't depend on their approval. 3 weeks into my training, I got my first paid client, a small fashion brand needing social media management. The pay was tiny, but the feeling unmatched. I called Florence into the room the moment the payment hit my account. "Look!" She screamed like I had won the lottery. But I didn't cry until later that night, quietly in the dark, because it hit me. My parents didn't break me. They freed me. The more I worked, the more my confidence grew. My phone buzzed constantly with inquiries. My small notebook became filled with ideas, strategies, goals. One afternoon in class, my lecturer asked, "What motivates you?" People said passion, success, curiosity. My answer was simple: rejection. Because rejection had pushed me harder than love ever did. But life wasn't done reshaping me. It was only the beginning. A week later, Florence burst into our flat holding her phone. "Judith, a friend of mine is hosting a networking event. Business owners, investors, you have to go." I almost said no. Anxiety was loud. But something inside me whispered, "Move forward, keep going." I didn't know it then, but that event was where I would meet the man who changed everything. Rafael. And his entry into my life was the beginning of a new chapter, one my parents never expected. The networking event felt intimidating. People wore confidence like tailored suits. I walked in wearing second-hand shoes and a hopeful smile. Florence nudged me toward the refreshment table. "Relax, you belong here more than you think." I wasn't sure until I turned and saw him. Rafael. Tall, clean-cut, carrying a quiet kind of presence that didn't need to announce itself. He wasn't loud, flashy, or arrogant like the men my parents admired. He looked grounded. We bumped into each other, literally, when I stepped back from the table. "Oh, I'm so sorry," I blurted. He smiled, and something in my chest softened. "No harm done," he said. "Are you enjoying the event?" I laughed nervously, trying to. For some reason, he stayed. We talked about business, goals, failure, fear. He listened intently, not like someone waiting to speak, but someone genuinely interested. "Your eyes light up when you talk about marketing," he said. I didn't notice. I did. It had been years since anyone saw me. When the event ended, he asked if he could walk me out. Outside, under the dim lights, he said softly, "I hope this isn't the last time we talk." It was. Over the next months, we grew closer, slowly, naturally. And then one day, he held my hands and asked, "Can I be part of your life?" I said yes. But when I introduced him to my parents, that yes nearly broke me again. Because their reaction showed me exactly what they valued and what they didn't. Introducing Rafael to my parents was a disaster waiting to happen. I knew it, but some part of me still hoped, just a little, that they would surprise me. They didn't. The moment Rafael walked into the living room, my mother's eyes scanned him from head to toe, not with curiosity, but calculation. My father didn't bother hiding his scrutiny either. "So, what do you do?" he asked, leaning back like a king granting audience. Rafael answered calmly, "I run a tech consulting firm." My mother's eyes sharpened. "A small one or a big one?" "Mother," I warned. She smiled without warmth. "What? We just want to know if he's rich." Rafael stiffened. I froze. They didn't ask his character, his values, his intentions, just his bank balance. "So," my father pressed, "financially, where do you stand?" Rafael gave a diplomatic answer, but I could feel the tension thrumming through his hand as he held mine. When we left the house that evening, embarrassment burned in my stomach. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "They shouldn't have." "Judith," he said gently, "their behavior reflects them, not you." But in my heart, something darkened. Their rejection didn't just hurt. It reminded me why I left that house in the first place. Still, I wasn't prepared for what came next. A week later, I informed them Rafael proposed. My mother barely looked up from her phone. "We won't attend the wedding," she said. "We can't support you marrying someone whose wealth we can't confirm." No hesitation. No shame. No motherly concern. Just dismissal. I hung up the phone with a shaking hand. But the fuel for my revenge. It was lit right then. And I had no idea destiny was about to hand me the perfect opportunity. Their refusal should have broken me. Instead, it awakened something fierce in me. By then, my digital marketing career had exploded. What started small grew into a steady stream of clients, business owners, influencers, companies. I began turning down gigs because I didn't have enough hours in the day. I upgraded from Florence's spare mattress to my own room, then a bigger apartment, then staff, then a registered business. My parents had no idea. They hadn't bothered to check. They didn't ask, didn't call, didn't care. They didn't know how much money I was making. They didn't know I received an award at a national marketing conference. They didn't know I'd been featured in 2 magazines. They knew nothing because they had never wanted to know anything. Meanwhile, Rafael stood by me through every late night and every breakthrough. We grew, not through glamour, but through grit. Then came the moment I never expected. A luxury brand approached me to handle a full digital strategy campaign. The pay was more than I made in my first full year. The results exceeded expectations so much that the brand sent me a gift. A car. Not just a car. A statement. A symbol. A door slamming in the Hudsons, faces after years of neglect. And they weren't supposed to see it. Except fate had a different idea. My wedding day was approaching, and the universe was preparing a spectacle. The morning of my wedding felt calm, peaceful, almost surreal. My makeup artist had just finished when the event manager called. "Your car is here." I stepped outside, and there it was. The luxury car the brand gifted me. Shining, elegant, impossible to ignore. Florence screamed. Rafael smiled proudly. Me, I felt something cold and clean settle inside my chest. This wasn't just transportation. This was the moment the universe said, "Now they will see you." When I arrived at the venue, guests turned, gasped, whispered. Cameras flashed. I stepped out of the car with quiet confidence, the kind built from scars. Inside the hall, everything was perfect. And then the doors opened. My parents walked in. I froze mid-step. They had insisted they wouldn't come. They had mocked Rafael. They had dismissed me. But the moment they saw the car outside, their expressions changed. Shock, confusion, calculation. My mother's eyes glittered with sudden interest. My father straightened his posture like he was claiming ownership. They approached me, smiling too widely. "Judith, darling," my mother said. "We didn't want to miss your big day," my father added. Liars. They didn't come for me. They came for the car. For the success they thought belonged to them. But as they stood there, basking in a success they had no hand in, they had no idea what was coming next. Because my revenge. That was only beginning. My parents hovered around me like flies drawn to honey. Except their honey wasn't me. It was the car parked outside. My mother kept touching my arm, leaning in too close. "Judith, you look stunning. You've really bloomed." Bloomed. I had bloomed years ago. They just hadn't bothered to look. My father scanned the hall like a politician hungry for connections. "Your guests are quite successful looking. Impressive circle you have." I stared at him. He wasn't impressed. He was calculating where he could fit into my life now that it appeared valuable. Rafael noticed my discomfort. He took my hand and whispered, "Do you want them here?" It was a simple question. A powerful one. Because for the first time, I had control. "Yes," I whispered back, "let them stay. Let them witness the life they never believed I could build. Let them choke on it." The ceremony began. As Rafael and I exchanged vows, I saw my parents in the corner of my eye, my mother wiping tears that felt suspiciously fake, my father nodding with pride he hadn't earned. But the sweetness didn't last. During the reception, my mother pulled me aside. "Judith, is the car yours? Truly yours?" There it was. The real question. The real reason. I simply smiled. "Yes." Her eyes widened with disbelief and a spark of greed. But before she could probe further, The event coordinator approached her with a message that made her face drain of color. My father stood too quickly. My mother grabbed his arm. Both of them suddenly uneasy. Something had happened. Something they didn't expect. And I hadn't even started with them, yet the event coordinator whispered something into my parents' ears. Both of them stiffened instantly. "What do you mean she's handling it?" my mother snapped. "She asked me to inform you," the coordinator replied gently. They both turned toward me, pale, rattled, suddenly out of balance. My mother stormed up to me. "Judith, why did the coordinator tell us we don't need to settle anything? What's going on?" She meant the expenses. They had assumed I couldn't afford the wedding, because they never believed I could afford anything. "Because everything is already paid for," I said simply. "All of it." My father blinked, confused. "By who, Rafael?" "No," I said, holding his gaze. "By me." It was the first time in my life I had seen fear in their eyes. Not fear of danger. Fear of losing control. Before they could respond, Rafael's uncle approached me and shook my hand. "Congratulations again, Judith. You've built an impressive agency. Your talk last month was exceptional." My parents froze. Talk. Agency. I watched the puzzle pieces fall across their faces, slowly, painfully, and for the first time I felt nothing. No guilt. No longing. Just clarity. My father cleared his throat. "Agency, you own a business." "Yes," I said, "a successful one." Their mouths parted. Their pride cracked open like old paint peeling off a wall. But the best part, this wasn't even revenge. Not yet. That came when I quietly excused myself and left them standing in the middle of the hall, staring at a life they had no part in building. As the evening progressed, my parents' behavior changed completely. Suddenly, they were warm, attentive, curious. A miracle, if you didn't know better. My mother kept introducing herself to guests, the bride's mother, like she was auditioning for a role she'd never played. My father walked around asking questions about digital marketing like he genuinely cared. I watched from a distance, almost amused. Florence joined me with a glass of juice. "Your parents look like they just realized they lost something valuable." "They did," I said quietly. "Me." But the thing about people like my parents is that they never accept loss gracefully. They rewrite the narrative to make themselves victims or heroes. I knew it was coming even before they approached me. My mother touched my cheek gently, an affection she had never shown in my entire childhood. "Judith, darling," she began, "we're proud of you." Proud? The word felt like an insult from her mouth. My father added, "We misjudged you, we thought you struggle without us, but you've proven us wrong." I wanted to laugh. Struggle because of them was more accurate. But revenge wasn't shouting. It wasn't fighting. It was letting them choke on their own hypocrisy. So I smiled politely. "Thank you." My mother exhaled in relief. "Good. Now that your life is stable, we should reconnect. Family is important." Family. I almost choked. Then she said it. "We'll discuss how we can be involved in your business." There it was. The greed. The entitlement. And I knew exactly how to answer. But I didn't say it yet. Not tonight. Revenge is most delicious when served cold, slow, precise, and unforgettable. My parents clung to me throughout the reception like they owned shares in my success. They kept offering unsolicited advice. My mother suggested a family dinner every Sunday. My father said I should consider moving closer to them now that I was doing well. But the final blow came when my mother leaned in and whispered, "Judith, darling, since your business is thriving, you could help us settle a small financial issue." There it was. The real purpose of their sudden affection. Not love. Not pride. Need. "Financial issue?" I asked, though I already knew. She sighed dramatically. We invested in a business opportunity. It didn't go as planned. A few million lost. Your father is stressed, I'm exhausted, and we thought, well, family supports each other. Family. Always that word. Always twisted in their mouths. My father added, it wouldn't be a loan. You're our daughter. It's your responsibility to help. Responsibility. The same people who threw me out at 18 had the audacity to claim responsibility now. Florence, standing behind me, nearly choked on her drink from shock. I smiled politely. We'll talk after the event. They relaxed instantly, believing they had won. But I wasn't done. My revenge needed a stage. A moment. A final twist. And the perfect opportunity arrived when the MC announced. Time for speeches. My parents clapped proudly, unaware that I had asked for a special edition. As I walked toward the stage, my heart was steady, my voice calm, my steps sure. Because my revenge wasn't loud. It was truth. And the truth was about to be delivered, with the entire hall watching. I took the microphone and stood before the crowd. Rafael smiled from the front row, Florence squeezed his arm, and the hall quieted. Good evening, I began. I want to thank everyone who came to celebrate with us today. You've all played a role in my life in one way or another. My eyes swept across the room, landing briefly on my parents. When I look around this hall, I see people who believed in me even when I didn't believe in myself. People who encouraged me, supported me, invested in me, not financially, but emotionally. My parents straightened proudly, assuming I meant them. I didn't. I wasn't raised with love or support, I continued. A ripple moved through the hall. I wasn't nurtured, I wasn't encouraged, I wasn't guided. In fact, I was pushed out at 18. Gasps. My mother's face drained of color. My father stiffened. But life has a way of compensating for what you lack. I met friends who became family, mentors who became anchors, people who saw me, valued me, lifted me. My voice stayed steady, calm, deadly. And everything I have today, every achievement, every victory, every blessing, was built by my own hands, not inherited, not gifted, not supported by those who should have cared. Silence. Heavy. Sharp. I smiled softly. So when you see my success, know that it didn't come from privilege. It came from survival. My parents shrank into their seats. And to anyone wondering if they now get to reap where they never sowed. I paused. The answer is no. A collective exhale filled the hall. I ended with a gentle bow and handed the microphone back. My parents sat frozen, exposed, humiliated, speechless. And that was only the beginning. I barely recognized my sister. Her shoulders shook as she held the necklace, our grandmother's necklace, like it was a lifeline. I didn't leave because I wanted to, she whispered. I left because I had no choice. My heart slammed against my ribs. What do you mean? She swallowed hard, eyes darting around like the walls could hear her. Dad told me I was a burden, that after Mom's accident, he didn't want two daughters dragging him down. He said the family image mattered more than raising spoiled girls. And one night, when I refused to obey something he demanded, I packed my things and ran. I felt heat rising under my skin. He kicked you out. Not in words, but in every action. Her voice trembled, and I was afraid he would do the same to you. I begged Grandma to take you away, but she said you deserved a chance at a normal childhood. A hollow laugh escaped me. Normal, in that house. Lucinda cupped my face. I came back because I heard about your wedding, and because I wanted to see if they'd changed. I shook my head. They didn't, and they won't. Then I whispered what had been burning in me for years. But this time, they're about to learn you don't throw away your children without consequences. Lucinda stared at me. Judith, what are you planning? I smiled, not kindly. Justice. And for the first time, Lucinda didn't stop me. Florence sat cross-legged on my couch, laptop open, eyes sparkling. I swear, Jude, if revenge was an academic course, you graduate with first class. It's not revenge, I corrected. It's restoration. She snorted. Girl, say whatever helps you sleep. But she still pulled up the email drafts we'd prepared. Polite, formal reminders to my parents about wedding logistics, each one sprinkled with subtle warnings about misconduct, financial irresponsibility, and their long history of emotional neglect. Are you sure you want this to go out? She asked. Yes, I said without a breath of hesitation. And these messages aren't for them. They're for the guests who'll eventually read them. Florence grinned. I love this version of you. Rafael walked in, loosened tie, amused expression. My wife-to-be is building an empire and planning a psychological war at the same time. Should I be worried? No, I said sweetly. Just grateful I'm on your side. He kissed my forehead. Always. Then he surprised me. He placed a key fob in my hand. What's this? I asked. A wedding gift, early. When I unlocked the parking garage and the lights illuminated the sleek car waiting for me, my breath left my body. Rafael wrapped his arms around me from behind. Let them underestimate you, Judith. They're walking into a storm they built with their own hands. And I knew he was right. My parents rejected the first invitation. And the second. And the third. Mother, I said on the phone, it would mean a lot if you came. Her reply was ice. Why should we? What if this boy is beneath our standard? I smiled. You'll see him on the wedding day, if you attend. She scoffed. We are not going, don't beg. I wasn't, I murmured. I was giving you a chance. She hung up. Minutes later, Dad texted. We will not attend. Don't embarrass us with your poor choices. I screenshotted everything and added it to my folder labeled proof of neglect. Florence stared at the screen. I cannot wait for the twist. There's no twist, I lied. Just consequences. Meanwhile, Rafael watched me with quiet intensity. You're sure they deserve this? They created every moment that led us here, I whispered. I'm simply finishing the story. But even I didn't expect what happened next. 3 days before the wedding, Mom called, voice tense, breathless. Judith, darling, your father and I have decided we might attend after all. I sat still, letting the silence sit on her skin. Oh, I finally said, why the change? There are things we need to discuss. About your fiancé, his financial standing. Of course. Always money. Well, I said softly, you'll get your answers on the wedding day. They had no idea. The night before the wedding, Lucinda paced my living room like a storm cloud. Judith, are you sure you want them there? They'll ruin it. They always ruin everything. I looked at her, really looked at her. My sister who had swallowed years of guilt thinking she abandoned me, when the truth was she had been chased out of her own home. I want them there, I said. I need them there. She stopped packing. For revenge. For closure. Lucinda sank onto the couch. You remind me of myself, before I ran. I tried so hard to make them see me. I'm not trying to be seen, I corrected, voice steady. I'm making sure they never look down on us again. She took my hand. Dad only respects what he can use. Mom only loves what makes her look superior. Be careful. I squeezed her hand. I'm not that little girl anymore. Tomorrow isn't about them. It's about me, Rafael, and the life I built. Lucinda's eyes softened, relief threading through her exhaustion. But I didn't tell her everything. I didn't tell her that the seating arrangement would expose their lies. I didn't tell her the guests would piece everything together without me saying a word. I didn't tell her about the moment my parents would freeze, choke, crumble. Some truths needed silence until the final reveal. And tomorrow. Tomorrow was the reveal. My makeup artist said she'd never seen a calmer bride. If only she knew. I sat by the window in my robe, watching the city wake up, feeling the thrum of destiny humming under my skin. Today wasn't just my wedding. It was the day I stopped being the abandoned daughter and stepped into the life I built myself. Florence burst in breathless. "They're coming," she whispered dramatically. "Good," I replied. Rafael walked in moments later, dressed in a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled up, eyes warm. "You ready?" "I've been ready for 18 years. He kissed my forehead. "No matter what happens today, I'm proud of you." I nodded, but my eyes were cold steel. At 10:47 a.m., Florence received a message on her phone. She leaned close and whispered, "They're at the gate, and Judith, they came in their best clothes. They think today is about them." I smiled slowly, a smile years in the making. Let them in. Because they were about to witness the one thing they never expected from the daughter they discarded. My triumph. And the moment they saw my car. That was when the storm would truly begin. The ceremony hadn't started yet when my parents walked into the venue. Silence rippled behind them, not admiration but confusion. They were overdressed, overconfident, and already whispering about who looked important enough to greet. Mom's eyes scanned the hall like she owned it. Dad adjusted his blazer and muttered, "They could have chosen a more prestigious location. Looks average." I watched them from the balcony, above like a spectator, observing strangers. Then Rafael entered the hall. He carried himself with effortless, quiet authority. People gravitated toward him, not because of wealth, but presence. My parents' heads snapped in his direction instantly. Mom gasped. "Hudson, he looks wealthy." Dad's tone changed. Yes, he does." Their posture shifted, suddenly eager, suddenly proud, suddenly pretending they had been involved in my life all along. Lucinda appeared beside me, whispering, "They're circling him like vultures." Raphael spotted them but didn't approach. Instead, he simply gave a polite nod, nothing more. My parents were stunned. They weren't used to being ignored. Mom whispered to Dad, frantic, "We must make a good impression. If people know we are the bride's parents, they'll respect us more. Don't embarrass me." That sentence sealed it for me. Even here, even on my wedding day, their focus wasn't love. It wasn't happiness. It wasn't me. It was bragging rights. But that was fine. Because the next moment, the one moment they believed would elevate them, was the exact moment that would humble them in front of everyone. I stepped outside with my bouquet, heart hammering, not from nerves but anticipation. The wedding coordinator held the door as I approached the entrance. Guests turned. Phones lifted. Whispers grew. "Is that the bride's car? Who owns that? Wait, what model is that?" My parents followed the crowd's gaze. And then they saw it. The car Raphael gifted me, a breathtaking machine, gleaming under the sun. My father froze. My mother clutched her purse, so tightly her knuckles went white. "That can't be for Judith," Mom whispered, voice cracking. I walked toward the car slowly, letting every step burn into their memories. Florence opened the door for me like a royal attendant. Gasps echoed. And then, the moment that shattered them. Raphael reached me, kissed my hand, and loudly said, "Your car is ready, my love. Your car. Not his. Not borrowed. Not rented for show. Mine." Dad's mouth dropped open. Mom swayed on her heels. They had assumed, that I would remain the useless child, the daughter without value. Their faces turned pale as guests murmured, "She must be doing very well. Her husband is lucky. She's clearly independent. Those must be her parents. Why do they look so shocked?" Dad whispered to Mom in horror, "They didn't need us." And that was the truth. During the reception, the MC invited all parents to give a short blessing speech. My parents rose instantly, fake smiles plastered on their faces. I watched Raphael's jaw tighten. He knew this could destroy the mood. But I stood and said calmly, "Actually, before my parents speak, I'd like to share something." The hall quieted. My mother stiffened. My father's smile faltered. I stepped forward, microphone in hand, voice steady as a blade. "I want to thank everyone who stood by me, especially those who showed love even when I had none at home." Gasps. Whispers. Mom shifted in her seat. "And I also want to honor someone who taught me what real family is." Lucinda's eyes widened as I gestured to her. The hall applauded. She burst into tears. Then I said it, the sentence that sliced my parents clean. "I stand here today not as the child who was thrown out at 18, but as the woman who built herself from nothing." You could physically feel the room shift. My mother's face drained of color. My father tried to signal me to stop. I didn't. Some people only show up when they think you've become worthy of being seen. A collective gasp spread across the hall. I ended the speech with a smile, not bitter, not angry, triumphant. "Today, I marry a man who chose me for who I am, not what he wanted to use me for." And with that, I sat down. My parents never made their speech. My parents left quietly after the reception, humiliated beyond repair. No dramatic exit. No confrontation. Just silence. Later that night, as Rafael and I prepared to leave the venue, I saw my father standing alone outside near the parking lot. "Judith," he called softly. I turned, expression unreadable. He swallowed. "I didn't know you were doing so well." "That was the point," I replied. Mom approached, mascara streaked, voice trembling. We didn't expect." "You didn't expect me to succeed without you," I finished. She looked down. "We made mistakes." I stared at them, two people who had spent years making me feel invisible. "Your mistake," I said calmly, "was thinking I needed you to matter." They flinched. Then Rafael walked up behind me, hand on my waist, presence firm and protective. My father looked at him, defeated. "You married a strong woman." Rafael smiled slightly. "I know." My parents left without another word. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel discarded. I felt free. On the flight to our honeymoon, I stared out the window and thought about everything: the years of neglect, the loneliness, the bruising silence of that house. Florence had been right. Lucinda had been right. My grandmother had been right. They didn't break me. They forged me. Rafael squeezed my hand. "You did what you needed to do." "I didn't humiliate them," I said softly. "They humiliated themselves." He kissed my temple. "And now?" "Now," I whispered, "I live and they watch." Because revenge wasn't the car. It wasn't the speech. It wasn't their shock. Revenge was becoming everything they swore I could never be. And I did it without them. Did Mr. and Mrs. Hudson deserve what happened to them? Or did Judith go too far in her quest for revenge? Comment below and tell us if you've ever been judged or mistreated by your own family.